Welcome to the Burnout to Lit Up podcast. I am your host, Erica Del Pozo, occupational therapist, certified health coach, CEO and founder of Joy Energy Time, Miami Girl, and Pineapple Lover. In this podcast, we provide the resources on how to deal with stress, burnout, and anxiety, how to get energized, find true satisfaction and alignment in your life, and more. You will learn how to slay your burnout beast and go from burnt out to a lit up life. Let's do this. Today on the Burnout to Lit Up podcast, I have a wonderful guest. Lauren Grabowski is someone I actually stumbled upon on Instagram, and I loved your personality right away, to be honest. I could tell that you were just a passionate OT. OT is Occupational Therapist for short. And I could just tell that Lauren has so much to offer. She's been an OT practitioner for 4 years, like me. And you have worked in a variety, well, I say you, but I'm looking at her right now. She has worked in a variety of pediatric settings in Pittsburgh, and then as a traveling therapist, which I can't wait to talk about. She has participated in the AOTA Emerging Leaders program, spoken at a variety of state and national conferences, and traveled to Africa to research OT in resource scarce environments. So, Lauren, what haven't you done? And Lauren is also a fitness instructor, and she loves to dance. So if you're listening to the podcast, this podcast was recorded live. So I'm looking at Lauren right now, and this is live on Instagram. So yeah, I'm talking to both audiences, future, current. Okay. So Lauren is a fitness instructor and loves to dance. I love to dance too. So we're definitely twins, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And I love how our connection started just by Instagram love. It's perfect.
Yeah. And fun fact is I used to do PIO. I never was an instructor, but I used to do it and I loved it.
Yay. That's like my soulmate workout. That totally changed my life. I love it so much.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So I'm so happy to have you, and tell us a little bit more about yourself. Like where you're from, your background, and how you got to where you are today.
Perfect. So I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I grew up there. My whole family is still there, and I have a ton amount of extended family. So even just moving and being a traveling therapist was a big step for me. So born and raised in Pittsburgh, I went to school, I went to college in Pittsburgh as well. But kind of how I found OT is my sister has an intellectual disability and also autism. So I used to go to her OT sessions when I was 7 years old. And from that time, I was like, I want to be an OT. I want to be an OT, because I was completely inspired by all of the swings and all of the fun toys at that point. And then I always said I wanted to become an OT, go to Duquesne University is where I went to school, and then become a pediatric OT. And that's kind of the journey that it continued through life, and I never left the field of that passion that kind of was instilled in me from that age. And from then I lived in Pittsburgh for about 2 years, and then worked at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh in their inpatient rehab unit. And then I was just kind of looking for something different, and kind of knew that my next steps were possibly out of state, and I started as a traveling therapist and landed in Florida.
Oh my goodness. I love Pittsburgh. I was there for a wedding last year, and it's such a cool town.
It is amazing. It's so great, and the people are so kind, and there's always so much to do. And the people are so kind. There's so many things to do. The sporting events are awesome, and the food is incredible. So
yeah, I had a pierogi.
See? You're like almost a true Pittsburgher now.
Except for the fact that my husband's from Philly, so.
Oh.
But
it's our rival city, and if he's a Flyers fan, I'm not sure if we can be friends.
He's actually a Penn State fan.
He's what?
A Penn State fan.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, like more than anything else. So, and actually, I actually like Pittsburgh more than Philly. So, like, I know it's amazing.
Good choice. Good choice.
So, like, how did you and how many? I know I was gonna ask you this later, but I can't help to ask you now. Like, how many travel positions did you take? And then was Florida your first one, and you decided to stay here, or like, how was your process like?
Yeah, so it's so funny because I started traveling and I was like, I'm going to travel for 3 years and I'm going to go all over the country and all this stuff, which is great. But I also entered into it of really open to see how it would unfold. And I was just very open of letting the wind take me where I was meant to be. So I signed on my first first travel assignment was here in Florida in Fort Pierce, and nothing against Fort Pierce, but no. If you Google Fort Pierce, it literally when my recruiter was like, oh, there's a pediatric position in Fort Pierce, I Googled Fort Pierce, Florida, and the first line on the internet said, Florida's voted like worst city in Florida. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, but I ended up signing there. It was an amazing first contract, and I ended up extending for an extra month because if you are familiar with traveling therapy or different states, California, that was my goal, was to get to California. California is so hard to get your state license, so it actually took me 3 months. So I ended up extending in Florida to finish getting my California license. And then I took a position in the high desert of California, like rattlesnakes, coyotes, like mountains, cactus. I had like a ton of cacti in my front yard. I was on this big plot of land in a house by myself, like craziness.
Oh my gosh.
So that was my second contract. And then I took a third contract in LA, so I moved closer to LA, the city downtown, and I was in Pasadena in a school district. Then that contract, also within traveling therapy, contracts tend to end early if you can't extend them because the positions get filled. So that position, the school district that I was in, actually, they filled their position within a month. So I had like zero time to figure out my next placement. So I ended up finding a job at LAUSD, which is Los Angeles School District. And so I was there for a couple months of my fourth contract. And then I also have like autoimmune things that are going on in it. That's why health and wellness is super important to me. So my system just didn't really jive and vibe well with California, so I got really sick and I just wasn't feeling great out there. And then out of a twist of fate, the place in Florida, I knew I always wanted to come back to Florida, but the place, my first clinic in Florida there, I did my first placement, called me out of the blue and was like, we have a level 2 student coming, and if there's any chance you could come back and be her fieldwork educator and take a contract position down here, like, we would accept you in a heartbeat. And next thing you know, 3 weeks later, I moved across the country again and ended up in Florida again. So then I finished a contract or 2 contracts there, and then I decided to become a full-time Florida resident.
Wow. So how long have you been in Florida?
Officially 1 year. So I moved back for that contract position as a traveling therapist 1 year ago, like literally this weekend, Memorial Day weekend.
Wow, that's so interesting.
A long story, but
yeah, that's funny that you say California because my husband and I, he's a physical therapist, so we're going to do travel therapy together. And we're starting in California.
Yay!
In August.
Oh my gosh, that is going to be amazing. I miss it every day, I really do. And I laughed that I was going to say, or that I said that I was going to be a traveling therapist for years and years, because I wanted to do the full West Coast. Like, I wanted to go all the way up to Washington and Oregon and Northern California, but it just kind of wasn't in the cards for me. But I would still want to go there and visit and see where life takes me in the future. But I'm so excited for you guys.
Thank you. It's a long story, and I'll have to make a podcast episode talking about what our plan is because, like, I'm not going to take a contract, and he is, but it's a long story because I'm working on my entrepreneurial OT stuff. But I'll have to, that's like, a whole other story. But I'm still applying for an OT license in California, maybe to do some per diem work and just to stay on top of my game in a clinic or in a clinical setting. But so, okay, I have a few questions, but I'll just start with, are you happy with Florida? Like what is it about Florida that you love?
So just at baseline, I love the sunshine and being so close to the beach. And one thing, especially coming from a Midwest town of Pittsburgh, even though it's kind of split in the middle, it could be like East Coast versus or Midwest, but the way of the people and the way that I grew up is very, very like blue collar. You work in a corporate environment from 9 to 5, and you stay there forever, and then you retire. And that has always been like the picture of what I've been surrounded with, and there is nothing wrong with that, and I think that you need to follow your heart, but I was always pulled to do something a little bit more and felt like I needed to be a little bit more creative and not work for a boss and have not that freedom and flexibility my whole life. So that's one of the real reasons that I do love Florida, is because I feel like there's a ton of opportunity. There's not a lot of OT schools down here. So that's the other thing. In Pittsburgh, there's like 5 OT schools within a 15-mile radius. So it's super oversaturated. It's really hard to find a job. Whereas Florida, I think that there's such a need, and then there's such a diverse population and an opportunity to create your own, that entrepreneurial, kind of serve that, you know what I mean, that desire and that drive. So there's an opportunity to grow a business and to be an independent contractor with different companies so that you have that flexibility to see what you can do in the free time and what you can build.
Right. So I think I forgot to mention that you are an adjunct professor, and so was I. And we are both contractors. It's like it's kind of freaky how like similar.
So
yeah. So I totally 100% get what you're talking about in terms of like, I was born and raised in Miami, but it's still like, I don't know if it's like an older generation mindset where it's kind of like you're very secure in a job and you're there for like 30 years. I think that's just also like a generational thing, because it's kind of like our generation, I feel like and again, it's not like saying that that's wrong. It's just our generation is exploring other opportunities more, which
right.
I feel like we totally understand. Before I move on, I just want to ask you, what was your favorite and least favorite thing about travel therapy?
Okay. My favorite thing was probably just the diversity of meeting so many different types of people, and then in different environments. So I kind of went in with the mindset of like, you can do anything for 3 months. So even if it's not the best setting, or you're not surrounded by the best type of people that really drive you, everything's a learning opportunity, and I love to learn. Like every day I reflect on 3 things that I've learned that day, and so I just loved the amount of learning that you can do from so many different aspects. My least favorite part of it was probably the stress. Like I said, I do have some autoimmune conditions, and stress is a big thing that really triggers it. And it's something that I'm constantly working on, and it's the hardest thing ever, honestly, especially whenever you're more entrepreneurial and building things and doing a million different things like I do. But I think it definitely is a very, very stressful job, and you have to be in the right mindset and have that open mindset to do it.
Absolutely. I think it's definitely not for the faint-hearted or faint of heart.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and I would advise any OT or PT new grad to, my personal advice is to wait at least a year and gain some experience in a permanent setting, because I feel like I've had other friends that are OT and PT couples that are doing travel, and they're just, thrown into, like a full caseload, no mentorship. And I feel like you need to really have a lot of mentorship in the beginning, especially if you're thinking about travel therapy. Would you say that happens?
Yes, I would say that you definitely get thrown in. I do feel blessed that I had those 2 years of experience in a very critical, dense environment. So with inpatient rehab, I learned a lot, and I learned a lot that you can apply to across the spectrum. And I had a really good field work placement. So I think those all set me up. I do say that I do really agree that it's great if you can have that year of experience before you travel as an OT, but there are some certain situations, and I think there's certain types of people that make it work, and I've seen new grads really thrive, but I think you have to have the right confidence, the right fieldwork placements, the right skill sets to really feel like you're thriving, rather than a ball of stress all the time that you can't enjoy that travel aspect.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like the right mindset, right field works, right. I feel like you could be an OT for 10 years and never be ready for travel. So it depends on your personality and your flexibility.
Exactly.
So I definitely consider you to be a leader in OT. So what is your definition of leadership, and what inspired you to become or be a part of the OTA Emerging Leaders?
So I think leadership in any capacity is the ability to kind of inspire and bring people together to work for a common cause or a common goal or something together. So I really take a team-based approach and kind of a more of a heartfelt leadership, I guess, rather than that managerial aspect of things. So leadership has always been entwined in my life, even throughout college. I was always doing leadership programs and just really opportunities for me to learn how to be an effective leader and really hone in on my skills so that I can be that creative force that helps make changes and helps drive people to be better in every situation and for the greater good, which is always something that I've loved to do. So I graduated and I started working for that big hospital system, and I wasn't getting the mentorship that I thrived off of and that I really thought that I was going to get. And it was really frustrating for me at points as a new grad and as someone that went through college involved in so many activities. I was always learning from people. I had the best mentors that really helped take me to the next level. And then to get kind of thrown out into the real world as a new grad, trying to figure everything out, trying to feel confident in my skills. I was working in a pretty tough setting that was just opening. So I was me and one other OT were paving the path for OT in that setting. And I wasn't getting that mentorship. So I actually Googled OT mentorship, and that OTA Emerging Leaders popped up. And I've always been involved in AOTA. And then as soon as I saw that Emerging Leaders program, I was like, I think this is my next step. And I applied for it, and I ended up getting accepted. And it was honestly a really great opportunity, and I loved every minute of it.
Oh, awesome. I need to get re-involved with AOTA because it's like one of those things that it's so important for, our profession. And a lot of people I know, like in other like professions, like PT, because I have so many friends, like they kind of just like let go of their membership, and I'm guilty of that too. But this is like a reminder for me to get back.
Gotta get back to AOTA.
Yeah.
I'm like one of their biggest advocates, just because I think it's a good organization, and it's a good way to connect with other people, and it's a common denominator that OTs can collaborate and use to help push our profession forward.
Exactly. Let's take a quick break from the episode to talk about Stethi Shop. Now, this isn't a paid ad. I'm just a happy customer, and I love the idea. I love the box, so I'm more than happy to talk about it. It is a quarterly subscription box for healthcare professionals. And their prescription on their site, which is really cute, says double dose of style and triple dose of beauty. So I've never done subscription boxes before. This is my first time. And needless to say, I am quite impressed. I love that I chose them. And I feel like it's really tailored to me because I am a healthcare professional. And in my first box, I was surprised with what I got, but I absolutely loved it. I got some hair vitamin gummies that are super delicious. I got a little flashlight, which is definitely something I needed in my day-to-day practice. It's cute. It's like a cute pink pen light. I got this candy bomb that I can throw in the bath when I take a bath. And it's going to actually make me take a bath because I really don't like it. But now I'm so excited to try it. I got this delicious tea, this peach and cream flowering tea. Oh my God, it's so good. I mean, this is like a pampering box, perfect for healthcare professionals. And I love that it's quarterly because it's not overwhelming for me. So I definitely recommend, if you are a healthcare professional and you want to glam it up and treat yourself, because I'm always talking about self-care, then you gotta get a Stethi box. If you use my code joy.energy.time during your checkout, you will get 10% off your first box. So yay to Stethi Shop. I'm so happy you exist. I'm so happy to be a customer, and I'm happy to share it with my lovely audience. And I know you told me that you have spoken at conferences, and I'm excited about that because that's the direction I want to head towards. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I actually started presenting. I presented at AOTA when I was in college. So I was part of that research in Africa. So I was able to present there, and then through the Emerging Leaders Program, I actually created, so I wasn't that one actually presenting, but I was creating and finding presenters to put on a big technology panel. So I was reaching out to other practitioners, and I was fully in charge of bringing everyone together for presenting and having an appy hour. If anyone's been to AOTA and have been a part of the appy hour, that I was in charge of putting that together. So that was kind of what I did while I was in the Emerging Leaders Program. I also presented at POTA, which is the Pennsylvania Occupational Therapy Association. And then most recently, last summer, I did 2 presentations at FOTA. So the Florida Occupational Therapy Association. So it's been really great. I do love presenting. On the books, I have one presentation for it is one of the presentations that I gave up at FOTA for continuing education down here at the university that I teach. So I love presenting and love just sharing knowledge and kind of learning while we do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I'm dying to hear also about Africa and like how, I know you kind of mentioned it, but how was that like, and just tell us what that experience was like.
It was incredible, and it was really great to do it and see it through the eyes of an OT. So I went all through my my 4th and 5th year. So I went to a 5-year program, which was amazing. I went in as a freshman and graduated in like 4.5 years with a master's of OT. So my 3rd and 4th year, I was really involved in the research projects, and my research was based in Africa. Now, from the time I was little, for some reason, I've always been drawn to Africa. I've always said that I wanted to go there, and I've just felt pulled, but that just has always been something I've always said since I was little. And so this research project landing in my lap was just so incredible, and I jumped right in. And then at the end, right after I graduated, the opportunity came up to go to Africa and talk to those clients that I've been doing research with from afar.
Wow.
And see the clinics, talk to different hospital systems down there, go into the outskirts and talk with different tribe members and see how they practiced OT, how they practice healthcare, and how we can collaborate and create connections moving forward. So I was there for about 6 weeks in the summer, and I want to go back every day just because it was so incredible. The people are amazing, and while I was there, we did get to do 2 fun things, and we went on 2 safaris. And I to this day say, everyone needs to go on an African safari, because it is honestly the most incredible, breathtaking, humbling experience ever.
Oh, wow. What country in Africa were you in?
I was in Tanzania.
Okay, I have a friend that volunteered in Tanzania. They provided free PT and free surgeries. So it's like, it's so cool. Like I see all these things, and like once you told me that, I'm like, oh my God, I want to do it. I just want to do something skilled, OT related, and I feel like there's definitely opportunities. We just have to find them.
Right, exactly. And I always say, because my parents, they'll be mad whenever I talk about this, but my parents did not want me to go, especially at that time. We were supposed to go to Kenya, and that part of the trip was canceled because there was a lot of turmoil happening at that time, and it is scary. And they always said, well, there's needs in the States. Like, you don't need to go across the country to go find work and, like, have this opportunity. But I do really think it's important for your own practice, and if you have an itch to do that, I think it only makes you a better practitioner to have those experiences and be involved in a different culture and see how that works. Because a lot of the time, a lot of practitioners go over to different countries or different places and think that they're going to help them, whereas them as practitioners end up learning so much more, and you really have to change your style of going there. They go with the mindset of like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and actually provide treatment, whereas in the long run, it's better if you can go there for education purposes and teaching them and giving them tools rather than just going there with that mindset of, I can fix everything. So it's just a really humbling experience, and I think it only makes you better as a practitioner and as a person.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's true. And I've seen articles about other medical missions, with other professions, and I've seen so much about how, like, it's more about the impact we can make over a long term versus a short term of trying to fix things, like exactly what you said. So,
right.
Yeah. I actually, this is like a side note, but another Instagrammer that Proper Jetiquette, do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't know. I have to look.
I'm sure you follow her, but I'm sure
I'm following her. Yes.
Yeah, but she's starting a program called Therapists Without Borders.
Oh yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
So I'm dying. I reached out. I donated to her what's it called, GoFundMe. I mean, so if you're listening right now, if you want to support this organization, she's like fundraising for it. Proper Jetiquette, instead of etiquette, Jetiquette with her Instagram, and she has a GoFundMe there. So that's incredible. I'm so happy for her.
That really is incredible.
Yes. We have so much to talk about, but I'm just so I know you, when we talked a little bit about what we're going to talk about in the podcast, I know you mentioned, and you even said it now, how important holistic health is for you as a person and for your like how you practice as an OT. So I want to start by asking you, what makes OT specifically like a holistic practice?
So I think the greatest thing about our profession is that it genuinely looks at the whole person. And that is the whole reasoning in my mindset of what holistic is. But I think sometimes that can get easily lost, where we say that we're looking at the whole person, but we're really not. And so we're not, there's just always so many intertwining things, and we label them as these big categories, but it's really not all of the pieces that come together to make that whole person. So I think as a practitioner, and what I've really learned is that nutrition and either like that mental health piece, or the even spirituality and our breathing and all of these different factors come together to meet those needs, and we have to be looking at all of them holistically, or at least be willing to acknowledge the piece that the role that they play in our everyday life. Because at the end of the day, OT is all about occupations, and us living, and everything we do is an occupation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, OT's rule, everyone else rule.
Yes, exactly.
So for your philosophy specifically, how does that, because I know you talked about like everything like you just said, and how as an OT, like it's within our nature to be holistic, but how do you specifically practice being holistic?
So I try to really create relationships with my clients and their parents, and even just open the door for conversations for other opportunities and other treatments to look into. I do really believe in a lot of alternative practices. I've seen a lot of amazing results, especially with my kiddos with autism. And it's just that willingness to talk about it and almost normalize it. And not in a negative fashion, but in a fashion of like, hey, have you ever heard of gluten-free? Like, that's not the end-all be-all, but like, let's look at keto. Let's look at this diet. Let's see what we can do and what we can play with, just so it comes to the surface. Like, obviously, as OT practitioners in an hour session twice a week, you're not going to be able to hit on everything, but I think it's our roles as practitioners to start the conversation about those different facets and see which ones might have the greatest impact in the shortest amount of time, so that we can see quick changes and then add layers on top.
Exactly. So what's your favorite alternative practice that you implement the most, you would say?
That's a tough question. I guess, well, I don't know if it counts as an alternative practice, but that, like, nutrition in general would be probably the biggest one that I think a lot of healthcare practitioners don't look at. Another thing for a lot of my older kids that are now kind of getting into it, acupuncture has actually been really good for a lot of my kiddos with different like motor coordination things, and just anxiety and stress and kind of those behavioral outbursts. Now, obviously, with acupuncture, you have to be at a certain level and age and everything like that. But some parents are actually looking into it and seeing really good results. I have 3 clients that have tried it, and just overall that anxiety piece and that stress piece has really decreased their behaviors.
Wow, I would have never, like, I've been thinking about acupuncture lately, but I've never thought about it in that aspect, like with that population. So that's super interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and that's the thing is, I think a lot of practitioners and a lot of people have really strong-arm defenses of anything new, which is fine, because I think a lot of things have worked in the past, but I think it's very important to continue to grow and to continue just to be open and seeing why that might not be the best option, or why it might be worth a shot.
Yes. Like I have done a deep belly breathing with some of my older kids for
Yeah.
emotional regulation, and it's just like the like what I see, like it's like I just see a difference instantly, and we're just focusing on our breaths. It's nothing out of this world, but it's actually it kind of is, because it's like, wow, just focusing on that can just bring a child from one place where, with the outbursts and the moods, and bringing them to this place where like they can focus. Like I feel like we need to explore breathing and yoga and all those things.
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because breathing and that breath practice has been something that I've always heard about, but over the weekend I was doing a fitness course, and the guy that was leading it talked about breath and fitness so much. It was a core component before you even get to the exercises. And that was the thing that struck me the most of, wait, why don't I think about breath on a regular aspect? Like we can go days and weeks without like food or water and just survive, but you can't go very long without breathing, yet no one ever thinks about it or talks about it or tries to change it. And it's been so eye-opening even in the last 48 hours to even consider that.
Wow. Yes. Yeah, that's true. It's like a lot of, well, that's why I'm getting on a soapbox, but that's why OT is so amazing, because in OT I feel like there's really like we cover it all. And since I have a PT husband, oh my God, we used to bigger about that, like who's better, all the time.
Right.
But so like I want to ask you, what do you feel like people should know about OT, and what are some common, I guess, either myths or anything like that people should know about?
So I think if I'm talking to a practitioner first, I would say the biggest myth is that you need to be very structured. I have always said, if you are not finding your passion in your work, OT gives you every opportunity to create your own. I think you can take it and intertwine it with almost anything in life, because that's the basis of our profession, and I think OT is genuinely a mindset as much as it is like a profession. And I think that never close yourself in a box, because you can genuinely intertwine it with any aspect of life and in any practice, and you just have to be creative. And I think like for the general population, one of the biggest myths that I see is, and I know there's so many memes and stuff about it, but that we help find jobs, or we help that like we don't play a vital role, just because I think, especially when it comes to PT, and this is what I was always hearing in the hospitals of like, I just want to be able to walk, or I just want to be able to walk upstairs and just get around. But I think that we provide such an important aspect of that quality of life piece that we shouldn't, even though we always fight with the PTs. Like I work so closely with my PTs, and I have the best relationship with my OTs, PTs, speech therapists, recreational therapists when I worked with them, all of those different things working together, because there is so much to do, and you can only focus on so much whenever you are given an amount of time. And it's important to collaborate, but also stay strong in that, and like stay strong in the profession and stay strong to what you can do and add to there.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say the job thing, because that's our biggest myth, that we help people find jobs, or we only do upper body or hands.
Right, or hands, yes.
Yeah.
Like, oh gosh, no.
Yeah, we're definitely, and even as an adjunct, we were my last class that I helped teach, we were talking about the transition that OT has gone through, and now we're in this holistic era, this era of wellness, and wellness can mean a million different things, and I think we need to be given more credit, or I feel like,
yeah,
I just feel like OTs, I feel like other people step in and and I had a really in-depth talk about this with my colleague where we talked about is social, even so, and not to like rain on anyone's parade, but it's like other professions are kind of like taking the spotlight, like social work, psychologists, even like life coaches or other sorts of people.
Like therapists is another one that I think really can teeter on that line of OT and play therapy too.
Life therapist?
Play therapy.
Play therapy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's, I mean, every profession serves its purpose, but I feel like every time I get a new evaluation in pediatrics, the parent hardly ever knows or has a limited understanding of what OT is. So I just feel like we need to, as a profession, I think we're getting so much better at it, but expanding and not staying in the box and not just being upper body or not just being what we've seen previously. Like, I feel like you and I, and there's so many OTs are like, we're like the new voice of OT, so to speak.
Right. And I think it does, like, I think that's why pulling it back to AOTA is that is a really good platform, and I think that they've done a lot of work, but we really need to band together as therapists to solidify all of the different areas that we can have our hand in order to really set in stone our place in the medical field and in the medical field, but also kind of just the world of where we are, just because we do add such a vital role, but it is considered like a newer profession, and a lot of people don't understand it because they don't think in the way that we think. So it's a lot of education, and I think it's been great. Like, we definitely have made a lot of strides, but there's always so much more to do.
Yeah, and even going through OT school, a lot of my own expectations or beliefs were shattered. And being an adjunct, I'm sure I've seen students, like, I've seen their faces. Like, I feel like I see the wheels turning when we shatter their beliefs of what OT was based off of what they observed even before getting in. So it's like, we're always like growing.
Right, exactly. Which is amazing and great, and one of the reasons why I love OT.
Yeah, and you said something so beautifully before. I don't remember exactly word for word, but you said something about like we can make, and I'm sure in a lot of other professions too, because before I say what I want to say, like my husband, he's really interested in non-clinical PT sorts of things, and like these sorts of things we just never thought of, because when we were in school we just see the clinical, like we just want to be practitioners, and that's kind of like I think most of us go to school to become, and again that's fantastic, but you said something how like in our profession we can make whatever we want out of it, and that's why I'm niching to burnout prevention. So do you feel like what are some other maybe non-traditional or non-clinical OT roles that you've seen or that you've heard of that like people should know about?
So non-clinical wise, well, just even to touch on like clinical wise, whenever I was in OT school, I had to do like my field, like level 1 field work, but it was across a time period, and I needed to create a project essentially for it. And I actually worked in a homeless shelter, and it was really amazing. And that was one of the things that shattered my beliefs as an OT. So we worked with the women living there with job finances, cleanliness, like all of these different aspects. And that was really eye-opening for me. So I think from a clinical perspective, that was they were teaching, or they were working with clients, but that was such a diverse, like unique situation that I never thought of before. So that is one prime example of not staying in the box and really kind of pushing the limits and really planting your foot of why you can be beneficial. I think this is me dreaming. Watch, someone will run and do this idea. But I think even like non-clinical aspect of ride development. So I'm obsessed with Disney World and all things Disney. So I think it would be amazing for an OT to be on staff to help with their development process of even like building little mini sensory break rooms, or tailoring rides to have special effects and just different things like that. I think amusement parks, I know a lot of places have been really stepping up their game and changing and giving accommodations, but I think an OT's perspective can really take it to the next level. So that's kind of something non-clinical that has always been something that I would love to do. But really unique and interesting, and even just, I think that there's a big piece, another non-clinical or more like educational standpoint. My brother is a neurosurgeon, and so he works crazy massive hours and doesn't take care of himself because he's working like 48-hour shifts and operating all the time. But I'm like, I don't know if I would want a brain surgeon operating on me that hasn't slept in 3 days. So I think that there's a big role that we can even do from a train the trainer model of care for practitioners and care for that holistic aspect for us as providers, in a way to help be there and be more present and be better for our clients.
Oh my God, like, amen.
Yeah.
Well, like, everything you say is pretty, like, but like the Disney thing, you should get on that. You should get your ergonomics certification.
Yes, absolutely. I know I do need to get on it. I think that's why I landed in Florida a little bit, because I'm gonna work my way up into that Disney life. Like, that is, and then I'll just like part-time be Elsa on the side.
Oh my God. That would be so fun. Yeah, that's like, it's like when I hear those ideas, and I see a lot of companies trying to be more inclusive, and you're right, OTs will take it to another level, and I think that's when we will really earn our seat at the table, like that phrase. Like, I feel like I don't know, I'm so young in my profession, but like I've spoken with colleagues that have been practicing for like decades, and they still feel like we don't have a seat at the table, which is like, I know that will change soon. Right. And the whole thing about like, you're so right. I have some doctor friends that don't take care of themselves, but there's, right. So that's totally my niche. Like, I decided for burnout prevention, there's a lot of careers where you burn out, like teaching, engineering, and a lot of like lawyers. And you can burn out in any job, but that's why I wanted to focus on healthcare, because we're healthcare, but we can't take care of other people if we're not taking care of ourselves.
Exactly.
So what are, like, just really quick, I have like 2 more questions. If you were to talk to a prospective OT student and tell them, because we've talked about so many wonderful things of OT, but what would be maybe something bad, or quote, like bad or ugly, or something along those lines that you would tell them, that, or something like realistic that they should be aware of?
So student-wise, I know, and I've actually had a couple conversations of people asking me, but I think like financially and school loans and kind of navigating if it's worth it is something that you do really have to be aware of. And I think if you're looking at OTs versus CODAs versus different opportunities in that field, I obviously am very blessed and glad. I'm paying for it. I have student loans out the wazoo. Mm-hmm. But I am really grateful for going to the university that I did and the way that I did it. But I think that it's just, as a practitioner, and it's something to be aware of, and it's something that's not talked about a lot, because I don't know, I think like finances and money and how much you make is always kind of a little hush hush, and I think it's something that needs to be way more out in the open and be willing to be discussed, because it's a big life decision if you're gonna drop almost like $100,000 on OT school and everything like that. I just think it's really important to be aware of that and ask the questions, see, like, apply for scholarships, do as much as you can now so that you can lessen that price tag.
Yeah, that's something that is really not spoken about until, like, I remember our wrap-up week, and they're like, well, here are your, this is what you have to do with loans, and goodbye. And I'm like, spent weeks, probably months, like, lost. So I feel like there needs to be more of a conversation about, okay, like, understanding, like, I didn't even understand the loan situation because my parents always took care of it. So I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to school and everything's fine. But now it's like understanding that, and then, like, exactly what you said, that should be talked about.
Right. So I think that's kind of the biggest, like, the ugly part of it is coming out, especially if you aren't fortunate enough to, that you, if you have loans, like, it is definitely something that you need to be aware of and be cognizant about.
Exactly. Yes. That was a great one. So I want to ask you about, really quick, since you do all these things, you're like this OT entrepreneur. What's your daily routine like?
So I wake up in the morning and I have a journal that kind of, I schedule out my whole day. I write three things that I'm grateful for and just kind of reflect on that. I think from a health perspective, a little thing that I do every morning is I take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and water and lemon, yay, and cayenne pepper, and that's my little mix to kind of wake me up and get me going for the day. And then my day, like, work-wise, is always different. Every day is different. Like, tomorrow I wake up and I teach a PIO class in the morning, and then I'll go to work all day. And then I used to be a morning workout person, but now I'm more of an evening person just because of the way my schedule has to fall. So then I usually go to the gym, and then I come home, and I usually try to end my day with just some reading, and then that always doesn't happen though. And then, like I said before, I got into with a little bit more of health and wellness. I got into the habit of posting three things I've learned in the last 24 hours every single day for like 2 years. And so I don't post that anymore, but I really do reflect on it still every night before I go to bed. And that's kind of my general routine.
Yeah. I love that. My routine is similar. Would you feel like that routine, like, really helps you to, like, be grounded and have a successful day?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, like, if one, and I don't want to say, like, if one wrong thing happens, then the whole day shut, because I really try to stay positive in any situation. But it really, I could tell even just yesterday and having off yesterday, and then today my morning was really shifted, and I didn't have a really structured routine, and I was like, wait, did I even do anything today? It keeps me on track, and it keeps me more focused and kind of just hustling a little bit harder.
Yes, yeah. A routine was something I never really had until maybe the last 2 years, and I've noticed it really just does wonders for you. Like, keeps me grounded. It keeps you focused.
Right.
So, okay, one last question, and then I have my signature question. I can't wait to ask you. So where do you see yourself, OT-wise, life-wise, living-wise, in 5 years, 10 years?
This question's so challenging for me just because whenever I was growing up, and especially in OT school, I was so like, I need to do this, and then I need to do this, and I need to do this. And I realized whenever I started working at 22 in that children's hospital after 2 years, I was like, okay, so then what's next? And from that time period on, I've kind of just allowed things to happen, which has been really great for me. But I think ultimately my end goal would be to have a clinic of my own, but more of like a holistic kind of co-op thing with a lot of different people and practitioners, and just more of a holistic environment where parents can work out, kids can be seen, and a lot of different treatments can happen. So that's kind of a long-term goal that's always been in the works in the back of my mind. And then I think, I mean, I would always also love to be married, kids, children, like, you know what I mean? All of those personal things, but you know.
I love what you said. Oh my God. Like whenever you start doing that, because like parents, like my parents, like I treat the kids and the parents have told me, like some of them have told me, you know, like it would be great if we could work out or do something while the kids are being in treatment instead of just sit here on our phones. I'm like, oh my God, like you have all these ideas. Like you're definitely gonna kill it. You're killing it already. Like you've killed it. You're gonna kill it.
So, we're all killing it. We're killing the game.
We're all slaying the game.
Yes.
Okay, so last question. Okay. Don't want to mess up my signature question.
Yes, don't do that.
What makes you your most lit up self?
I'm going to say, well, I'm going to say, so working out and dance. And I don't want that to be a cop-out answer, but I really do feel like working out has kind of more recently, within the last 5 years. I've been an athlete and a cheerleader my whole entire life, but I never valued it, and I've never valued the work that putting in and like the actual workout part of it until more recently, like within the last 5 years. And I can genuinely say that like dancing once a week and working out 5 to 6 times a week is the thing that really keeps me grounded and keeps me feeling my best self. I feel strong, I feel capable, and it always reminds me that I can continue forward, even if I have off days, even if like today I definitely didn't feel as strong after the long weekend than I did even last week. And it's just something that kind of keeps me grounded and humble and always lights a fire in me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. I was so happy to have you. And where can people find you?
So you can find me at LG the Fit OT on Instagram and Facebook, and then lgthefitot@gmail.com if you have any questions or anything.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. If you want more, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Also, share this episode with your friends, and I would be so grateful. If you feel inspired, leave a review on iTunes with an honest comment and or what you'd like to hear more of so you can help me out on my journey in delivering meaningful content. Thanks, mis amores.